So I've been invited to do a radio interview based on an article put out by the New York Times, and the article's titled "ADHD Seen in 11% of U.S. Children as Diagnosed Rise." I decided that if I'm going to do a radio interview based on an article, I should probably go ahead and read the article, and I did. It's an interesting article. It's a concerning. In the 2 days that it's been posted, or it's been up online, it's already gotten 1,100 comments. A lot of people have questions about, and there's some confusion, and there's a lot of skepticism? Skeptical? A lot of people are skeptic. Let me highlight a few things in this article if you haven't had a chance to read it yourself. It says nearly 1 in 5 high school age boys in the United States and 11% of school age children overall have received a medical diagnosis of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, a 16% increase since 2007 and a 53% increase in the last decade. So that's a pretty significant jump. Now here's the one that really catches people's attention. It also says 2/3 of those people that have with current diagnosis are taking medication. So let me give you the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to this article. You know, the great thing about an article like this is that it gives you some information. It puts the ADHD issue out there. It sparks curiosity. For some people, it might give them the push that they need to go out and do more research to understand it better. If a parent has a child with ADHD, something like this will encourage them to get a little bit more involved. Now, there's also a negative side to an article like this. If I were a parent reading this article, it'd freak me right out. Not knowing anything about ADHD is that you see that there's a 53% increase in the last decade. You read about the pharmaceutical companies and the way they advertise their medications, and the fact that from 2007 they were bringing in $4 billion. Now in 2012 they're raking in $9 billion, and so there's a huge increase there. And is it real? I've got a lot of parents that come up to me and say, I don't believe this ADHD thing is real. I think that it's just a ploy by the pharmaceutical companies to get rich. The people that hurt the most from an article like this are those that actually do have ADHD. Because there's going to be less accommodations made available. There's going to be less understanding. There's going to be less help overall. 1,160 comments, a majority of these are lashing out at the pharmaceutical companies, are talking about how this is just not plausible, that this increase could be so high. And so let me give you my opinion for what it's worth. Do I believe that ADHD is being overdiagnosed? Absolutely. They've made the diagnosis of ADHD way too easy. When I got officially diagnosed, I had to cough up $500-600 and sit down with the psychologist on several occasions where that individual did an extensive background history, had conversation not just with myself but with my wife and the people that were around me to really get a full understanding of the scope of the struggle that I was dealing with. And not until this whole interview testing process was complete that I received an official diagnosis. And who has the money to go and get an official diagnosis? I'd make the pharmaceutical companies make it mandatory and that they pay the tab. That if a child is suspected of having ADHD, the pharmaceutical companies who are breaking in $9 billion pony up the money, and that child goes and meets with a psychologist, and they go through that extensive testing process. Just know that when a child is diagnosed with ADHD, it does not automatically mean that child needs to take prescription medication. Being diagnosed with ADHD gives you an opportunity to understand what the issues are. And when you understand what those issues are, you can address them accordingly. And that ADHD medication, once again, is not a solution. It is an assistance to accommodations. And so whether your child is medicated or not, you're going to have to understand what it means to be ADHD. And you know, an article like this, I hope that it inspires some change. Instead of making it easier, they actually make it harder. That you've got to go through that long process with the psychologist. They find a way to get the pharmaceutical companies to fund that so that they're just not sitting back making all of this money. I hope that maybe an article like this would encourage parents to go an alternative route, recognizing that medication should be the last resort. I hope an article like this would inspire a change in education. You take these kids and you put them in a certain setting, they're going to be horrible. but you put them in the right setting, they're going to learn and they're going to thrive. And so for those of you that have ADHD, or your parents that have kids that have been diagnosed with ADHD, it doesn't matter how many articles are written. It doesn't matter how much this issue is debated. The day-to-day issues are real. And so I want to encourage you to do one thing. Continue to be open to learn. Ask questions. Be a part of some support groups. Understand that there is help out there for you. And by all means, don't lose hope, but do one thing. As always, keep moving forward. God bless.